Warning, this series reflects on changes that might not be final. They are tentative and are subject to change throughout the pre-season.
Hey everyone, Shakarez or Killbot here, and welcome to Rift Overview, where we'll be taking a look at the upcoming changes to the Pre-Season 5. Today we'll go over some jungle changes, specifically Smite Buffs. Before we move on to that though, it's important to start with the Summoner spell itself. Smite's cooldown increased to 60 seconds from 40. The icon now displays the current damage over the icon just like Riftwalk, so no more need to hover over the damage numbers. Good news for you bad smiters, you can no longer use Smite on small monsters. Killing a monster damaged by Smite will grant 80 extra experience, and this is a big part of the early level jungling. Blue and red buff only last for 2 minutes instead of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And last but not least, and the most important change, smiting a large monster will grant you a bonus effect based on what monster you smited. Now then, on to jungle camps and their respective smite buffs. It's important to mention that these smite buffs can only be obtained once per spawn, so if you smite a camp and leave it alive, and come back to smite it again later, you won't get the benefits in 2 separate occasions. The camp needs to be killed in order to have another smite buff later into the game when it spawns again. The 2 buffs, red and blue, have rather straightforward smite buffs. Smiting the red Brambleback restores a large amount of health over 2 seconds, and smiting the blue Sentinel restores a large amount of mana over 2 seconds. It's important to note that these smite buffs are not tied to the actual buffs these 2 camps give, they are separate things. Moving to the smaller camps, the Ancient KRUG or the Stone Bros now give a buff called Gift of the Heavy Hands. For the next 60 seconds your basic attack, and then every 5th basic attack will stun minions and monsters. The next attack against the tower will deal bonus true damage and consume the buff. Gromp gives you a buff called Gift of the Toadstool that gives you a Thornmail type effect over 90 seconds. Whoever attacks you takes magic damage over 3 seconds. The CRIMSOM Raptors give you Razor Sharp. You gain the ability to spot a ward within the next 90 seconds. If you are spotted by a ward, you gain True Sight for a few seconds, similarly to the Oracle's Lens. The activation of this buff is automatic, you can't control it. The Greater MURK Wolves spawn a Nature Spirit for 75 seconds that will grant sight over the crossroads between the Wolf Camp and the Blue Sentinel Camp. Whenever an enemy champion is spotted by the Spirit Wolf, it will follow them around and chase them while they are inside the blue side jungle. So obviously there are better and worse smite buffs and buffs that are to be used more frequently or less depending on the situation. For starters, remember that if you're backing next to a camp, you can always smite it before backing. If it's a long-lasting buff like the KRUGs or the Gromps, it's definitely worth it. Secondly, if you're contesting a camp with the opponent in his jungle, you can just smite it immediately and walk away from the camp instead of going for a smite fight. The point here is that you have more options, so be open to trying new strategies. In my opinion, the camp you'll want to be smiting the most is the Raptor camp, or the chickens, or whatever you want to call them. As a jungler, a big part of your job involves not being spotted, present in both counter jungling and ganking, so I'd say this is one you'll want to smite the most if you're not just farming your own jungle. The wolves have a very situational smite buff in my opinion. You should only smite them if you have nothing better to smite. So something like if you're just power farming or just about to back. Instead, you can look to smite the enemy wolves. This will allow you to control his blue side jungle for some time while you counter jungle. The KRUGs seem like they have a pretty weak smite buff, but in reality it's actually very strong in certain situations. For starters, if you're playing a farming jungler that is auto attack based, the constant stuns on the camps allow you to take less hits from the monsters and be healthier while farming. Secondly, they're a very strong buff to take down the Rift Scuttler or Scuttle Crab. With the stuns you'll stop his permanent roaming up and down the river. Not only this, he takes bonus damage when his movement is impaired via slows, stuns, roots, so a combination of red buff with the KRUG smite bonus will allow you to take him down easily. Gromp might seem like another of those bad smite buffs, but honestly I think it's very strong for your first clears in the jungle, especially if you're playing a jungler that struggles with clearing. Similarly to the KRUG's buff, more damage dealt means you dispatch camps faster and take less damage. Blue buff's smite buff isn't that great when you're taking it for yourself. You're going to have that mana back anyways with the regen, so I'd save it for other camps. On the other hand, it may be useful when you're donating your buff to the mid laner. Red's Smite buff is straightforward and good. Getting a large amount of health is essential for a lot of junglers that will be struggling with these early clears. But in later stages, I wouldn't smite it unless I don't have vision control and or if I need the health back. That is going to be all for this video. For the next episode, we'll look into jungle items and possibly enchantments, and we'll discuss the strength and viability of each one. I'll see you guys in the Rift. Shakarez signing out.